Did you see he was at the Stanley Cup Championship?
Oh my gosh.
I don't understand this hockey, but this is fun.
Oh
He's great.
gosh.
Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. Today, Eric and his son discover a quartet of peaks. Eric does a little route finding, and in doing so, discovers the round mound of rebound Charles Barkley in the middle of the hills of Colorado. That's terrible. So, Eric, today we're going to be talking about some peaks you did with your son near the greater Denver area. But before we do that, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we're kind of in the midst of the midsummer fun, so we got some trips planned as a family, and I've got my list of more 13ers that I want to tackle this summer, so I'm doing well. So, how are you, man?
I'm great. Like you said, in the middle of summer hiking, I've got a trip planned here. We're recording this a few days before July 4th, and I've got a hike planned for July 4th that hopefully avoids the crowds uh, to an unspecified location.
So they don't follow you?
No one will follow me. I don't know why anyone would want to do that, but it'll be in the northern Sangres and hopefully a little remote. But yeah, I'm doing well and just enjoying 100-degree temperatures outside here in Oklahoma.
Sounds
And my
wonderful.
it's gorgeous. It's really nice. Well, you should come on out, Eric. Just
I should mow your lawn for you in
oh,
that weather, huh?
bro, you don't even know. Like if you were to do that, I have dreams one day. Some people dream of making a lot of money so that they can like go travel. I mean, I have those dreams too, but if I reached a certain level of wealth, one of the first things I would do is pay someone to mow my yard.
Oh my gosh.
Because midsummer, when it's like 82 degrees, it's 8 in the morning and it's 88% humidity. No, like
This sounds brutal.
I dream all the time of like having the same house but no yard. I just, how can I do that?
Could zero escape it and just throw a bunch
Yeah.
of rocks down and that's it.
I mean, the New Mexican in me looks at that and thinks that's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But, my Oklahoma neighbors, well, they probably already think I'm weird, but they would be like, that's strange. Why doesn't he
Uh,
have just a field of grass?
what? Yeah.
Just pure lawn, nothing but Bermuda
Oh,
for miles and
you're
miles.
right.
So, Eric, we're going to talk about some peaks today that you did with your delightful son. So, what are the peaks and what drew you to them?
Yeah, so we were looking at four peaks kind of near Loveland Pass, west of Denver. So they are Santa Fe Peak, Sullivan Mountain, Geneva Peak, and Landslide Peak. And Ty, my oldest son, and I looked at everything and said, you know what, this might be doable. The two of us could probably try and tackle these four peaks. And I have a number of 13ers and 13er groups that I have on my list, but at the time, this was the only one that had a recent trip report that mentioned that there was enough snow melted that some of the hike could be done. Everything else in my list, no recent reports, or the reports still mention, oh, there's quite a bit of snow. So
Have
that
you
kind
thought
of,
of North Truchas Peak,
I,
Eric?
yeah, I think, I think North Truchas might work out. It sounds like the rest of them might be a little bit of a struggle. Maybe by now the snow is melted,
Fine by now, but yeah.
not when you were tackling them a couple of weeks ago. But there's two related things that are interesting about these peaks. Number one, they are not mentioned at all in this book, which is Jerry Roach's and his wife Jennifer, their Colorado 13ers book. So it focuses mostly on the Centennial 13ers, and one thing that's interesting is these peaks are not in that book. And the second thing is the reason why they're not in this book, and it's because they're all below the elevation of 13,300 feet. So this group of four peaks, the tallest one is Geneva at like 13,250, and two of them are unranked, two are unofficial, and then Geneva and Santa Fe are both on the shorter side of things while being official. So I think all of that kind of added up to this is interesting. It's kind of near home. I think I can bring my son. We can try and tackle this. We can see if there's maybe a 13er or two or four that we can try and summit. And so all of that seemed pretty intriguing to me.
If they all end at roughly 13.2 ish, what's the starting elevation? What's the trailhead starting elevation for these?
So depending on where you look, there's actually a few different ways to approach these. So climb13ers.com mentions that you can approach these from Webster Pass, which is south
Mm-hmm.
of the town of Montezuma.
Mm-hmm.
14ers.com shows a way that actually takes a Forest Service road. They call it Forest Service 264 or Santa Fe Peak. So that actually starts in the town of Montezuma and goes east. So yeah, I imagine you could do either one of them. Both of them are probably pretty reliable in terms of ability to get done in summer conditions. We chose the Santa Fe Peak road option. So you basically, from Loveland Pass, you go into the town of Montezuma. It's just east of Keystone Resort. And there's one stop sign in the town, and you go east from that stop sign, and you basically start going down this Santa Fe Peak Road. And it's not really friendly for two-wheel drive cars after a short bit. I would say after maybe a mile-ish, it starts getting a little rougher. So on 14ers.com, they describe that if you have four-wheel drive, you can drive up to about 10.8-ish,
Okay.
and that's a nice pull-off spot. We went a little bit farther. We got up to about 11.2, 11.3-ish, and we probably could have gone a little bit farther, but at that point, I said, you know what? I've gotten my car stuck in some places before I couldn't get out of. I think we're good with this spot. So there was a nice little pull off on the road, and so that's about where we stopped. There's really no formal trailhead at all. It's just you're driving
Okay.
along this road. Most of it on the way up to Santa Fe Peak, the first peak, it's almost road the entire way, an old mining road, and so
Okay. You're walking the road. The
you're
road is the
walking the road.
trail
Yep,
for a good stretch of this.
pretty much. Yep. So yeah, on the Subi scale, it wasn't terrible. It was maybe a five to get to that point. It was doable, and again, you probably could get a little farther if you had the gumption, but I didn't, so we stopped where we did. And yeah, you're on a road the whole way. You'll pass an old mine on the way. There's a couple of junctions you can take. You can actually stay on this Forest Service Road 264, and it'll lead you literally to as you kind of skirt west around Santa Fe Peak, you'll come to a little spot where you can see kind of a faint trail going up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, you'll be within 5 or 10 minutes, you'll be at Santa Fe's summit. It's at like 13,150-ish. So
Okay.
yeah, the way we took, we kind of shortcutted it a little bit, and so we went off of that road onto another road that it kind of forks off of it. And then you have to, as long as you're paying attention to where you are, like through GPS or if you're looking at your map, you kind of have to bushwhack south going up the slope off of this other main road that's in that area. And if you do that, then you'll join back up with Forest Road 264, but you'll bypass a whole bunch of switchbacking around that road
Okay.
does. So that's what we did. We saved ourselves a little bit of round trip that way. And we did a tiny, teeny wee little bit of route finding that way. So
Got to impress your kid.
got to say, oh, you know what, Ty? We should do this. We should go this way and kind of go off the road just a little bit. So yeah, after that, yeah, Summit Santa Fe Peak. That's, I mean, from that point, you're gaining almost 2,000 feet of elevation, and that's most of the gain you're going to have this whole time. So once you're at the top of Santa Fe, you just go back down, back to the road. You can see the next peak right in front of you, Sullivan Mountain. It's like this round mound of rebound, like right in front of you. It's so. It's like Charles Barkley in the 80s. So
That
you keep hiking along the road. It'll descend a little bit off of Santa
mountain's
Fe.
terrible. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
that's a great Barkley impression. You've been watching TNT, haven't you? That
I
was
don't know
really
what Shaq is talking about.
good. I hope Sir Charles isn't listening. Uh, so you get back on this main road and you descend a little bit, and you can easily see what you're supposed to do because this same road, it turns very sharply to your right, and and yet Sullivan is right in front of you. So you know you're going to have to go off the road at that point. It's not a difficult hike. It's you kind of go down into this nice little meadow, you kind of go over a little bump on the way, and I mean, we were not hoofing it that fast, but probably within 20 to 30 minutes, we were on the summit of Sullivan. So again, it's
So
unranked.
you don't lose a lot of elevation
It's
at
not a
that point.
lot. No, no.
Okay.
So that part is pretty nice actually. And it's clear, like there's no route finding. You know where you have to go. It's obvious. And yeah, there's not a lot of elevation loss or regain again. So you're at the top of Sullivan and you can see this really nice giant cairn kind of at the top. So we kind of rested, and to me this is where the hike started to get a bit interesting because you're in a group of four. Sullivan's the second one. You look over to the third one, Geneva, and you can tell you have to lose a lot of elevation at that point to get to the saddle. And you can see it kind of looks like almost like a river drainage coming off the summit is what the trail looks like. It looks pretty steep from Sullivan. It's the kind of thing where if you stare too long, you probably break down and cry. Like there's a pretty steep go, and you don't necessarily have a clear path on how to get there from the peak of Sullivan. So you kind of just wander around Sullivan's summit, and eventually you find more cairns going down off of the southwest face of Sullivan. And there's probably five or six of them that kind of lead you down this not so treacherous path to get all the way back to the saddle. And so you follow those cairns down, you lose quite a bit of elevation, and you get to the saddle. And once you get there, you can say, okay, well, the ascent of Geneva is not so dramatic,
Hmm.
but there's a couple of steep spots, and it definitely takes some effort. I mean, you probably, if I had to guess, you probably lose about 200 plus feet of elevation, and then you have to regain it to get to the summit of Geneva. And then
Okay.
Geneva's 100 feet taller than Sullivan, so you gotta gain all that. So it's just a slog. There's no route finding. It's class two, but eventually you kind of slog your way up there, and you get to Geneva's summit. And so that's really where we stopped the longest to have some snacks and have what we would call lunch.
You would put in some work at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. For a couple of guys that haven't hiked a whole lot in the mountains yet this summer, that was a bit of work. Now, at that point, you can look kind of to the southeast and you can see the fourth peak, Landslide Peak. When we were there, Geneva's formal summit was covered in snow, and there was this massive snow field between Geneva and Landslide. And so I kind of huffed through the first few feet of snow, and after a couple of post holes, I said, "Yep, we're gonna stay right here and go back. Landslide's not gonna happen today."
Yeah.
So, and Ty was not disappointed at that. So essentially, you just have to go back the way you came. So you have to descend Geneva.
And
You have
then
to find
reascend
those,
Sullivan.
find those same cairns on Sullivan, reascend that, and then go. You really can't skirt around the side of Sullivan, I don't think. I think that gets pretty gnarly on the true western face of Sullivan. So you do have to reascend it, I think, and then you kind of have to just get back up to that same road and take that same road back all the way down. So the total round trip, from what I saw, was about 12 miles, and I think we were probably pushing 3,000 feet of gain. So I think,
It's a pretty good day.
yeah, I mean, he on the way back, especially, he was huffing and puffing a bit, and I had to push him a little bit because there was some clouds coming in, and I thought, yeah, they're kind of in between those innocent, fluffy clouds and the really black, you're gonna die kind of clouds. So I'm like, I don't really want to chance it. So let's kind of hoof it here so we can get below tree line. And so that was a bit of effort, but we made it. And long round trip for a teenager that hasn't hiked a ton of 13ers before, but it was a fun day. Yeah, we enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Let's do a couple details here.
Mm.
You access it on a Forest Service road, at least the way that you went.
Hmm.
You said that was subiable, but not, you don't want to take your Camaro up there.
Mine's in the shop anyway, so I mean,
Yeah,
there's not
that's
wasn't an option for
how
me.
it always works, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
So, are there camping options on the way up Forest Road 264?
If you looked really hard, you could maybe find a spot or two, but there's a good chance it's going to be on an angle. So I would effectively say no. I mean,
Okay,
it would be really hard to find anything that would work.
that's interesting. In terms of overall rating, so let's take the three peaks you did, put them together. What would you say the class or effort or difficulty rating is for all three?
Yeah, for those three, it's class two. It's generally going to be very much on the easier side of class two. Again, going up Geneva's got a couple of steeper, screet-filled spots, but other than that, you're either on good trail the whole way or there's not much route finding. Yeah, I truly think for someone that really wants to start 13ers or maybe groups of 13ers, this is probably a good starting point for those reasons. There is some effort, especially just kind of trudging along the road, and then especially getting up Geneva Peak, there's quite a bit of effort. So, I mean, I would say overall maybe a four-ish.
Okay.
For being an early season hike, maybe I would rate it a little more difficult just because we aren't really broken in yet. But yeah, overall, not terrible and kind of fun too. Again, you get to tackle a few 13ers, you get a few different landscapes. I mean, there's really not much in the way of rockiness on Sullivan. It's a pretty grassy summit, and then Santa Fe and Geneva are pretty rocky. So you get some different terrain, some different challenges. I'll kind of put in air quotes, but it was fun. I enjoyed the hike.
Was this quality bonding time, father son?
Somewhat.
Little quality torture time. Here, son, let's get this third one.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't throw him into the snow pile in between Geneva and landslides, so and he didn't throw me in it either. So no, we had a good time kind of talking. Ty might be a little embarrassed by this. I don't mean to embarrass him, but he kept apologizing, saying, "Dad, I'm sorry I have to stop again." I just told him, "Hey, listen, if you didn't stop right now, I was going to stop in like 5 feet, so don't sweat it."
I'm dying
So,
here, son.
yeah, I told him I'm
Just
huffing and
wear it
puffing.
differently.
That's right. So, so yeah, I think from that standpoint, we worked together and made it a good trip. So yeah, I think it was pretty good.
That sounds like fun.
Mm.
You said this is a good early season hike, a good introductory hike for
Hmm.
someone that's wanting to start out. Just do a little bit of route finding that has been doing 14ers perhaps and is used to
Hmm.
those kinds of trails. This one lets you depart from those trails, get a little feel for some of the off trail character.
Exactly.
What are some of the other attractions of? I see a lot of people on 14ers.com have climbed these
Mm.
Santa Fe, Geneva, Landslide, and Sullivan. What else is the attraction here?
It's interesting you mentioned that a lot of people hike these because the day that we went, I think we saw a total of 5 people, and two of those were right before we got back to the car. So we barely we barely even said hi to them.
They
The
were
other
headed up.
Yeah, exactly. The other three, actually, one of them grew up in Geneva, Switzerland, so he really wanted to tackle Geneva.
Oh,
I think
cool.
I think we met them on the summit of Sullivan. They're like, "Boy, we got to get back to Montezuma by 2 o'clock. Do you think we can make it?" And I'm like, if you go down into Webster Pass from the Geneva Sullivan saddle, you might be able to pull that off, but otherwise, might be
I
might
don't
be
know.
biting off a little more than you can chew. And we didn't see them the whole rest of the day. So I think yeah, if you're able to time it right, there wasn't a ton of people on there actually. And
Okay.
for being a lower, I'll say easier group of 13ers, it was as quiet as I was hoping it would be. So that attracted me to it too. I was hoping it would be a little quieter, and it was.
The holy grail of 13er hiking. a lot of the time is being able to connect ridges. And it's rare you get to
Yes.
do potentially four peaks in a day like
Hmm.
that. I've only been able to do that three or four times. So yeah, this is a nice one. I would just add, it sounds like a really great combo where you can knock out four peaks in a day pretty, not easily, but easier than, in other places where they're probably really spread apart. That sounds like a really attractive part of this hike as well.
Yep.
So, Eric, if this peak was a song, what kind of song would it be?
I really struggled with this one too. You mentioned in our last episode how with North Truchas and West Spanish, you were kind of struggling with what song would they be. I really struggled with this one too. I was thinking about it last night and I thought I ran through probably half a dozen options. I'm like, why none of these are really that applicable? I mean, we listened to, my kind of silly appreciation for Bruce Hornsby.
Oh, yeah.
We had a couple of Bruce Hornsby songs I was thinking of. Actually, the Marines hymn mentions the halls of Montezuma, so I thought, maybe
Yeah.
that's in there. But I think the song that was actually in my head, you mentioned on the last episode that a lot of people probably hike with like a playlist of sorts in their mind. That really consisted of one song that I can think of during this whole hike, and so I think it would have to be that one. And because there is a Sullivan Mountain in there, my head went to the song Sullivan Street by Counting Crows from
Mm.
their debut album, which is a fantastic song. Sullivan Mountain doesn't have a street, it doesn't have a trail, it doesn't have a highway, nothing like that. But as soon as I could see that glorified speed bump in front of me, I thought, oh, Sullivan Street. And then that song was just in my head the whole rest of the time. So I guess I have to go with that one.
I like it. That's a wonderful album. The Counting Crows first album is about as good as it gets for a debut album.
It's amazingly good. There's
There's an
hardly a bad song on there.
there's another podcast called 60 Songs That Made the 90s, and he does an episode on Mr. Jones, which is the
Yeah,
most
of course.
popular song off that, which actually does not fit the character of the entire rest of the album.
No,
But
probably the most upbeat song on the whole thing.
yeah, a lot of, Omaha and
Yeah,
round
exactly.
here and stuff
Yeah.
on that. Apparently Peyton Manning made a debut on
Yeah,
the
right.
Omaha song. Oh,
Omaha.
Omaha, Omaha. I always hear that when I hear Adam Duritz
Mhm.
singing it.
Yep.
So I really think this is a great set of peaks that now you've got me interested. I'm like, where can I squeeze this into my summer? I was really hoping there was some camping nearby. In terms of local dining establishments, is there somewhere that you would tell people to drop by in Keystone or the halls of Montezuma or the Frederickson House?
Yeah. Yeah, come on by our house. You can have some gluten-free. I don't know what we would have. I got a pizza oven recently as a gift, and
Ooh,
so I've been making homemade pizzas, and that's been pretty yummy actually, even with a gluten-free crust. So,
yeah.
but
If you can do that home the store-bought ones, it's like eating a cracker.
it's yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Keystone is pretty quiet in the summer. There's probably a couple things open, but we didn't go that direction. The town of Montezuma has like 80 people living in it. It has a stop sign, and I think that's it. So I don't think there's even a restaurant to consider, unless like, if you want to knock on someone's door and, ask for a sandwich, maybe. But other than that, you and I talked about in the Quandary episode, Silverthorne's not too far away. So
Yeah.
Ty and I ended up going to grab lunch at. So we mentioned that Breckenridge has a crepe cart. So it's called Crepes a la carte. They actually have a second location in Silverthorne in like this
Oh.
indoor food court area. And
Oh,
so
wow.
so Ty and I went there for lunch. And then we went to our favorite Blue Moon Bakery, which is like a mile south of there, and grabbed a whole bunch of gluten-free pastries and brownies and stuff.
Ooh.
And we took some home for Rachel and Zach, and he and I kind of mowed down on some cupcakes and cookies. So yeah, those would be my two recommendations: the crepe joint and our favorite Blue Moon Bakery.
Did you burn enough calories to compensate for the pastryage that you consumed afterwards?
The pastryage, I like that. I'm gonna use that someday. we probably had a few hundred calories left that we could have replenished
All
after
right.
that hike. We felt
Little
pretty empty after that.
little
So
room for bacon there then.
that's maybe some bacon and potatoes and green
Oh,
chili and eggs, maybe.
I got a second stomach for that. That there's always room for bacon and potatoes and eggs.
I like it.
Well, Eric, any concluding thoughts that you want to add with respect to Santa Fe, Geneva, Sullivan landslide as we need to name that ridge. We need a portmanteau like DeCalibron.
Ooh, and I thought of that. And while we were hiking, I was thinking, so it would be Sasagila. And so it doesn't roll off the
Let's
tongue.
do it Spanish style, Sasahila.
Ooh, Sasuhila. I
Sasuhila.
like it. So the Sasuhila Ridge, it was fun. Yeah, you definitely get a workout out of it. You have the chance to potentially tackle three, maybe four peaks if you want to. You get kind of a range. I mean, the road is a little uninspiring for the most part, but otherwise, you do have kind of a range of different landscapes, different chances to see wildlife. We did see a couple of pika up there on Santa Fe. You do a little bit of kind of beginner level route finding. It was a nice, I don't want to say gentle, and I don't necessarily want to say easy either, but I
Gentle
think
for a 13er.
gentle for a 13er. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And for a group of 13ers as well. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it was a nice hike. I liked it.
Well, if our listeners want to tell us some of their tales or give us feedback on these hikes or solicit another Charles Barkley impersonation from me, where can they contact us?
Now, if they want to hear more Charles Barkley, I have a feeling it's not going to take much. They maybe can maybe send you a U2 cassette tape to Norman, Oklahoma, or
Yeah, maybe I've told the listeners this. I know you know this, Eric. My in-laws have a cabin in your Creed. They have a 1992 Jeep Grand Cherokee
yeah, you
that has
mentioned
like
it.
4,000 miles.
Yeah.
It's like been preserved in a museum. It's like utterly pristine, and it's got a tape deck that still works. And there's one tape that lives in that vehicle, and it is U2's Joshua Tree. So
Mm,
if anyone wants to supplement my U2 tape collection, I would prefer the Unforgettable Fire, Octoon Baby, perhaps send me a Rattle and Hum tape, and I
there you
will.
go.
That will not be terrible. So I'll do that for you all day, every day.
There you go.
I'm the Frank Caliendo of
Oh, yeah, there you
hiking
go.
podcasts.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
so did we even say where people can reach us? Did we
No,
even
but
I
maybe
did
we don't even
I
need
just
to.
yeah,
That's
sure.
your
Just
impression is more important than that. I'd rather hear you do
if
your
you want to
Barkley.
write Zach and Eric, you can do it at Greens and Blues Podcast at Gmail. What is Gmail? What what is this? At gmail.com.
I wonder if Charles Barkley has a Facebook page too. Do you think he
Oh,
does?
please. I just want to know like how he interacts with the internet. Like I can just see him bringing up the internet, like turning on his computer. What is this?
Does he have dial-up?
Sir Charles and his mansion with AOL.
Yeah, how about it? Oh gosh.
So, yes, we can be reached at greens and blues podcast at gmail.com. And where else, Eric?
Where else can you find us? You can find us at our Facebook group. You can look up our YouTube channel, which has got some videos and all of our podcasts. You can send a tweet. Man, I refuse to call it X because
No,
it sounds so wacky.
there's a
I'm gonna,
recent Supreme Court decision where even a justice said, even though its name has changed, we will still call it Twitter.
yeah,
And
yeah. I just, you can. I don't want to be X'd by someone, but if you have to, then you can go ahead and do it. It's your account anyway, so you can X Zach all you want because he's at NM Hiker Person on the formerly known as Twitter X platform.
you can be one of the non-bots that actually follows my account.
You got a couple of those?
Oh, I think I don't know how many followers I have, but 90% of my followers are bots for
Oh,
sure.
well, they're getting good quality podcast material to listen to then.
You know it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to our podcast, and we both hope you have a merry summer of hiking. Enjoy the hills, and we'll see you again next time.